I'll give you the advice I give everyone who ever asks me where to start with witchcraft or the occult. Learn protection magic. Hi, my name is Dorian, and this is Cypher Grove, the channel where we dive deep into the profound mysteries of spirituality, the occult, metaphysics, and religion. While I think it's safe to say from my experience that the world of witchcraft is not nearly as scary as it is made to sound, it would also be unwise and rather inconsiderate for me not to stress the importance of proper magical protection. I can assure you that those fears you may have that performing even a single spell will damn your soul or invite demons into your life to wreak havoc are founded mainly in superstition and religious dogma that have been placed in our minds by our surrounding society. No, engaging in witchcraft usually doesn't cause these types of things to happen, and while there's plenty to say about demon summoning and its dangers, that's an entirely different realm of occult study, and I assure you demons aren't usually sitting at your doorstep waiting for you to mess up on your first spell. No, trust me, it's not that scary, and there's not any sort of disaster waiting behind every corner, so to speak. But at the same time, the spiritual world is vast and full of the unknown. It does possess anomalies and dangers that you should be aware of. And as with anything, there is also some rare extreme circumstances, but the most typical dangers you'll find in the spiritual realm are those that can be dealt with a lot more easily than you'd imagine. So for this video, I'm going to give you just a basic and primitive primer in protection magic, and how you can integrate it into your practice regardless of your tradition or path. And this isn't a complete or exhaustive video by any means, and is just kind of a stepping stone to get you into the door. But before we get into that, let's revisit some of those dangers that I just mentioned, since we really need to understand what we're protecting ourselves from before we can get into the actual groundwork. So let's assume for the purposes of this video that there's basically three categories of threats, so to speak, from the spiritual realm. The first is energies, the second is spirits, and the third is other humans. Now, let's start with the first one, which is the most basic, which is energies. Our entire reality consists of interlocking and intermingling energies, both spiritual and physical, vibrating at frequencies that sew the very fabric of existence together at the bone. We learn this as early as middle school science class nowadays, that everything consists of vibrations and particles vibrating against each other. And while that's an entire subject on its own, and I'm sure will be the focal point of future videos, I want us to focus more on how it applies to our spiritual lives. Magic is the act of consciously engaging with these energies and altering them according to our will, often through the use of symbolic interaction and the psychic capabilities. But spiritual energies, which do exist by the way, just in a manner we can't yet scientifically quantify, are very much the same as physical energies in that there's a safe way to manipulate them and an unsafe way to manipulate them. I often use the metaphor of mixing chemicals together in a lab to demonstrate this. You wouldn't simply pick up various substances with your bare hands and slap them together. Of course not. Even if the substances weren't inherently toxic or corrosive, they could still have unintended effects or react to your skin or each other in unpredictable ways. You'd want to use the proper PPE, or personal protective equipment, which they teach you in grade school, to ensure the experiment was done in a safe and controlled manner. The same is true with spiritual energies. Energies are constantly interacting with each other all around you, and so there are ways to attract the energies you want and guard from the energies you don't. Energies, of course, can be self-generated as well as brought in by external entities, both human and non-human. Some scientists suggest that the human brain produces quantum energy through the act of thinking. Some toxic thinking or behavioral patterns can clog up or bog down your personal energies, and so it's important to treat this like a health thing. Practice hygiene and personal protection. The next threat or area of danger on our list would be perhaps the most tantalizing and fear-invoking of these categories: spirits. Spirits come in so many different forms, to name them would be well beyond the scope of this video. Defining them is equally as hard, since every tradition, practice, and religion has a different definition of what spirits are, and even my personal definition isn't that clarifying, but I'll attempt to tell you what I think they are. Spirits are concentrated energies, vibrating at such a high frequency that they possess consciousness. They are manifestations of the divine consciousness playing out in the form of singular intelligences, either possessing mortal bodies or existing entirely in the spiritual realms. Either way, spirits animate just about everything that exists, from you to your pets to the environment you live in. Yes, I use the term divine consciousness, which suggests everything is connected to a singular source of being. I'll expand on that in later videos, but essentially I believe that before this material universe was mistakenly created, which is a Gnostic viewpoint, every spirit came from one source of absolute consciousness. And yes, that includes you. Of course, spirits possess wills of their own, and many of them operate with motives that are far, far beyond our capability to comprehend. As such, spirits can pose a challenging threat to the practitioner if he or she doesn't know how to handle them. And I recommend becoming adept in some form of divination to help discern between spiritual forces and understand how they are at work around you. But regardless, you need to learn how to get rid of the spirits that are being pesky or causing you any form of disturbance, and I'll get to that momentarily. But finally, that brings us to our final category of threat: other humans. One of the biggest fears new witches have stepping into their practice is that another witch has cursed them or otherwise sent bad juju their way. And while I want to stress that being cursed is most oftentimes not the root of your misfortune, it can happen, and you should be ready for it. Beyond curses, however, people can just generally infect you and your sacred space with their negative energy unintentionally. The human is the ultimate conduit for energies, and as such, it's only natural that we carry them to and fro everywhere like it's nothing. So whether it's a curse or just murky energies, or even just someone or something in the physical world you need protected from, there's likely a solution within occultism that can be prescribed. So let's actually get into the foundational methods of protection magic. And to start with, I want to mention a few books that will come in handy for your studies. Perhaps the most important that I should mention beforehand is Jason Miller's Protection and Reversal Magic, which is an essential book for any witch regardless of your experience or your tradition. You need it, and it's a good book. It has basically everything you need to know about protection. Most of this video is actually based on what I learned from that book, and this book contains stuff that I use every day in my personal practice. And I'll get to my other recommendations as we kind of go along here. So the first method of protection is cleansing. And this is perhaps less of a protection in terms of defense or offense, but nevertheless, don't underestimate the power of a spiritual cleansing. This is one of those spiritual hygiene practices I mentioned earlier, and it's healthy to make this a regular practice, even daily, if you can. Cleansing is the act of removing unhelpful or unwanted energies from a space, an object, or even yourself. Sometimes it's literally as simple as cleaning. Cleaning the object, the space, the person. You can take a cleansing bath to clear away negative energies. So, cleansing shouldn't be confused with consecration, which is the ritualistic dedication of something for magical use or declare it as having a sacred quality. The most famous and often used method of cleansing is through fumigation. To fumigate a space through the use of incense, steam, smoke, etc. Most oftentimes this means white sage, and it's a very earthy smelling smoke. Another method is to use sound, such as a bell or a singing bowl. Pure sound tones help to break up the energy that is clumping up in the area and purify it in the ether. In the absence of a bell or bowl, you can chant certain divine names or words of power to purify the target of your choice. You could also try cleansing with sacred oils, holy or blessed water, or so on. In this way, you literally wash something of impurities, both physical and spiritual. Another method is prayer or visualization. In the absence of everything else, merely focusing on and visualizing the concept of removing impurities from something can have the same effect. And when this method is used, I like to imagine myself absorbing the powers of the universe and using them to wash clean my target, imagining the impurities dripping away like dirt. The next method of protection is banishing. Banishing is the act of sanctioning a space and compelling certain energies or entities to leave at once. I think this is the most basic and essential of all magical practices, and honestly, it should be one of the first things that you master. This is because it has such a wide array of uses. Not only can you banish unwanted entities, but you can banish various things in your life that you don't want. Things like jealousy, greed, anger, negativity, things that you're internally harboring that are weighing you down. You can send these energies away through a banishment. Most people start their practice by learning the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. This is how I started, and I learned this right from Donald Michael Craig's famous book, Modern Magick, which is a great book, by the way. However, it's a little outdated, and there's better books out there to start your practice with, honestly. But the LBRP is a long-winded spell used to bring the energies of a certain space into balance by chanting different divine names and appealing to the 4 cardinal angels. It's great for beginners who need some kind of foothold into ceremonial magic, but not really what I use in my personal practice now that I've evolved and found better banishing rituals. Banishing can also be likened to exorcism. And no, exorcism is not like what you see in horror movies. Usually, anyway. Exorcism is basically just a more intense form of banishing, wherein you stir up the spirits or energies in an area by pestering them until they reveal themselves, and then commanding them to leave. Of course, be careful if you ever try that, since that's a very ballsy thing to do. One of the best banishing methods you'll ever find is the sword banishing, found in Damon Brand's highly acclaimed book, Magical Protection, which I highly recommend. The sword banishing makes use of angelic names and a few very simple visualizations that you can do in less than 10 seconds for an incredibly powerful banishing spell. I also recommend the book just because it's really good all around. It has all kinds of protection methods that you'll find useful and that you can integrate into your life. The next method of protection is warding. So you've cleansed the space, you've banished anything unwanted. Now how do you keep the nasty things from coming back? Well, that's where warding comes in handy. Think of warding like putting a shield or a bubble over you or your home, a protective dome or wall of energy that blocks out anything unwanted. Creating wards is basically the act of insulating your life and practice to exist in a space without a lot of disturbance. Note that no ward is foolproof and all wards have their weaknesses and can be destroyed, but ultimately this is the best way to seal yourself in. Does this prevent all spirits and energies from entering your space? No. It will have no effect on those things that you allow and invite into your space. The wards instead function to keep what's meant to be out. To create a ward, there's endless methods. Most people create small charms or talismans through the use of ritual intentions and spells and place them around their space or carry them with them. There's so many easy ways that you can create wards. You can draw protective sigils on pieces of paper and hide them around your home. You can hang up chimes or talismans. You can consecrate candles for the purpose of protection so that every time you light that specific candle, a certain type of shield is raised. You can carve runes into pieces of wood. You can create spell jars or keep a book of protective seals you've activated. You can tie a few sticks together from trees associated with protection and hang them by your door. The possibilities are so endless. And when a ward has been hit by an attack, it'll start to show outward signs of falling apart or dysfunction. Some people even like to use plants as wards. If suddenly all of their houseplants begin dying unnaturally, they'll know that their wards are being hit. Look around YouTube for more examples. Additionally, check out By Rust of Nail and Prick of Thorn, a book by Althea Sebastiani, for more details. So this brings us to our next method, which is shielding. Jason Miller teaches this a little more extensively in Protection and Reversal Magic, but the idea is that you are essentially creating a few wards for your personal self as you go about your day. So let's say someone is attacking you with a hex or a curse. Shielding is a way of psychic defense to reflect that curse back on itself or otherwise cause it to disintegrate and not reach you. The process is mainly the same as warding, so I won't go too detailed on this one, but these types of wards go more on your personal energies and are more focused on you specifically than your space. There's also lots more methods on this kind of defense that you can find in Dion Fortune's book, Psychic Self-Defense, which is basically a protection magic classic that I also recommend. The next method is decoying, or sometimes called spirit trapping. Again, let's say you're being bothered by an unwanted spirit or a curse that has been sent your way. Many witches will place spell jars or charms outside their property that contain some kind of an identifying object, such as a piece of hair, their urine, clothing, toenail clippings, those kind of nasty things. But basically, this causes that charm or that spell jar to act as a sort of spiritual decoy. So the spirit or curse that's looking for you will latch onto that decoy, mistaking it for its target, and become trapped by it. This method, of course, requires you to have to deal with emptying the traps and cleansing them from time to time of whatever nasty energies or spirits they've captured, which is an entire subject of its own and requires some psychic attuning. The next method is deity work. Probably the most powerful option, honestly, on this entire list. It's always easier to defend yourself spiritually when you have a friend in the spiritual realm who can help you out. So praying to a deity who you have a pre-existing relationship with can prove as a powerful method of protection, as this deity can see and reach things that you can't and can protect you in ways that you won't even think of. Of course, this preferably needs to be a deity that you've already built rapport with. While you can always seek out a stranger in a time of emergency, you're going to get better results from a spirit that you work with regularly in other ways. So prayer, offerings, spell work are all ways that you can appeal to a deity for help. You can, however, create your own artificial spirits through a process called servitor creation, which can serve as guardians and watchdogs. And I recommend reading Damon Brand's book, Magical Servitors, for more information on that. The next method is ancestor work. Being in contact with the spirits of your ancestors and inviting them into your space can be much like deity work, only these spirits are more in tune with your bloodline, and depending how recently they lived, may even know you on a physical, corporeal level. You can work with ancestors as recent as your parents, or as old as the founders of your entire ethnic group. The sky is truly the limit. Offerings and prayers, as well as remembrance and veneration of ancestors, can imbue your space with a sacred protection, far more furious and zealous for your cause than many of the other methods that I mentioned. Sometimes you need the protection of a great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma on your side. The last method I am going to mention is charms and talismans. Carrying certain stones, amulets, or so on can have a great protective effect. Many crystals like obsidian and tourmaline have protective qualities and can easily be placed in a pocket or pouch. You can usually find these at metaphysical shops, but there's plenty of stores online that sell them as well. You can create talismans out of paper, clay, wood, lead, or so on. Carve a simple rune or sigil into the talisman and carry it in your pocket. One final trick that I'll mention here is taking a piece of jewelry and running it through incense and praying over it in the name of your ancestors or gods. So these were just a few methods. There's literally an endless amount out there. You can experiment with herbs, take protective baths, trace protective sigils onto your skin with anointing oil, and so on. I could go on and on and on. But in conclusion to today's video, I do hope these methods of protection magic will enrich your practice. As always, blessed be and stay well. My name is Dorian, and this is Cypher Grove.